My name is Debbie and I'm the shrink on your couch. I wanted to give you a quick tip on how to deal with yourself when you feel really triggered and emotionally charged and very, very upset about something that isn't actually that significant factually. That maybe something or someone or something in your environment has set you off, but you don't particularly care about that person, or you know that that thing isn't actually such a big deal, but somehow you're so rattled and can't really get beyond it. And the question to ask yourself in that instance, when you're trying to process it and come to terms with it, is when in my life might I have experienced this before? When in my life might I have been similarly treated or felt similarly, and perhaps then by somebody who did matter, or at a time in your life where it was developmentally important not to be treated that way? I'll tell you why. Yesterday I had a very upsetting encounter in that I waltzed into a bank just to collect a credit card, and I ended up being quite severely mistreated by one of their staff members. I'm not quite sure, even right now I'm not quite sure what happened, but I basically asked this person to assist me in collecting a credit card, and he just rained all sorts of abuse on me. And I left the institution, I drove home, and I felt incredibly unsettled. And I was actually quite angry with myself because I know better. I know better than to let somebody who I have no relationship with get to me. But later, in unpacking it, I realized that something about that interaction and exchange had reminded me, not on a conscious level, but on a subliminal and even cellular level, of a home invasion that I endured in my home last year, where 4 armed men attacked myself and my housekeeper in the course of our normal day. And I realized that the way that this bank consultant, this teller in the bank, had looked at me had actually replicated the way that this criminal in my home had looked at me in November last year. And that had stirred up all of these overwhelming emotion that had actually really derailed my day. And by the time I got home, I hadn't caught myself sufficiently. And so I walked into the kitchen, and my mother had cake and brownies and banana bread, and I ended up indulging in that, and then feeling quite irritated with myself about this whole chain of events that had unraveled an otherwise good day. But I realized later, when I sat down to do the work and to reflect on it and to journal about it, that if I was honest with myself, that something about this bank teller's demeanor and treatment of me, so dismissive, so degrading, so revolting, had hearkened back to the same demeanor of the person who had attacked me last November. And so some of what I was feeling when driving home was actually that same traumatized, panic-stricken, fearful, unnerved sentiment that happened in that invasion. And that all I could do in that distress was to reach for something to alter that emotional state and to move me out of that space. I know better as a bariatric patient, as a bariatric mind master, as somebody who teaches emotion regulation and distress tolerance. I know better, and I know how to slow myself down. I know how to meditate. I know how to process overwhelming emotion that comes up. But in that moment, it was so intense that I actually lost my grip on it, and it unraveled in a rather upsetting way. But it made me think to create this video for you, and just to advise you, or to give you that pearl, that when you're feeling disproportionately energized and antagonized and triggered to what's actually happened, it's not proportional. Maybe to slow down and ask yourself, when you felt like this before, when you've experienced something that emulates or mirrors this before, and whether that was perhaps not more significant than the chain of events in your day to day. and that will give you access to your psychology, access to your inner world, and will help you to do the work, grapple with the emotion, nurse and minister your pain, and then heal yourself, both for that experience in the past as well as for the current situation. I'll tell you that the hour or so that I spent unpacking this for myself last night was immensely therapeutic, and I think it actually healed something about that encounter last year with those gunmen in my home, and it also helped me to let go of the animosity I was feeling towards that bank teller, because he was rude. He was absolutely rude, but he wasn't an armed criminal in my home. And so maybe my reaction to him in the aftermath was also disproportionate as a result of all of this chaos and energy that was playing out within me because of my unresolved trauma. And so I encourage you, when you're feeling disproportionately energized and triggered, to just slow down and say, okay, let's not panic, but let's just check in. When have I felt like this before? When have I been in this situation? What has felt similar in my traumatic history? And how could I possibly use this flurry of emotion to heal myself, both now and backwards? I hope this has been useful. I'd love to hear your commentary. Stay tuned.